This is getting insane. Somebody just recovered molten metal that was dropped from a drone that was hovering behind their house.
An anonymous user shared an extraordinary story involving a glowing UFO and mysterious metal debris.
Molten metal falling from the sky. That's not science fiction. It's happening. In a quiet English field, a glowing orb floated silently, dripping molten fragments onto the earth, leaving behind strange, multi-layered metals no one can explain. Witnesses in California saw the same phenomenon, paired with power outages and vanishing lights. This isn't just one odd story. These events are happening across the globe. Let us unravel the truth, a revelation that might just rewrite everything we know about the sky and their secrets. Orbs, power outages, and a shrouded truth. Let's get real here. Things are getting downright bizarre. Imagine this. A glowing orb floating silently behind someone's backyard in Wickham, England, casually dripping molten metal onto the ground like it's no big deal. This wasn't some weird weather balloon or experimental drone. According to the original poster on a social media platform, it was an orb, bright as a star and glowing so intensely you couldn't even focus on it. The camera couldn't pick it up, well, of course, because nighttime and smartphone cameras do not mix. But what they described, well, let's just say it's not your typical night in the countryside. And just when they thought things couldn't get stranger, the ground started to hum. This story comes straight from the depths of the internet before the account mysteriously vanished. Spooky, right? The user explained how this thing hovered behind their house on December 16th. Their backyard is not some cramped city lot either. It's an open field in the middle of nowhere, perfect for walking the dog. No lights, no buildings, just grass. And that's where the magic, or weirdness, went down. The orb floated there, silently dripping what looked like molten metal for about 1 minute before gliding off behind some 40-foot-tall oak trees and disappearing like it was never there. The next morning, armed with a metal detector, the person and their husband ventured into the field to investigate. And lo and behold, they found clumps of weird, multi-layered metal. This stuff wasn't your average junkyard scrap. It looked melted and fused like it had been through an extreme heat cycle, then cooled rapidly. Naturally, the local wildlife wasn't packing blowtorches, so what gives? Helicopters buzzed over the area not long after, which might have been coincidental, or maybe not. After all, southern England has its fair share of military installations. But is that really enough to explain away what they saw? And here is where it gets even crazier. It turns out this is not some one-off fluke. Fast forward to July 22nd, 2024 in San Jose, California. Another glowing orb showed up, this time over Japantown. This one had a big spherical body with a smaller ball attached to the side. Sound familiar? It gets better. Just like the English sighting, this unidentified flying object started shedding glowing fragments that looked like molten metal. Witnesses described it as spinning and moving south before vanishing into the night. Oh, and there was a power outage right before it appeared, just to spice things up. Coincidence? Maybe, but probably not. By now you are probably thinking, glowing orbs and molten metal. What does it all mean? That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Could these sightings be linked? Are we looking at some advanced drone technology, alien visitors, or just an elaborate hoax? The person who posted their story wanted to send off the metal they found for analysis, but did not know where to start. Honestly, who would? Universities, private labs, government agencies? There's no clear roadmap for handling unidentified flying object residue, assuming they'd even admit it was extraterrestrial in the first place. And just when you thought this rabbit hole could not go deeper, another mind-bending sighting popped up in Dallas, Texas in December 2024. A massive glowing object hovered over the area, moving slowly and unmistakably visible from miles away. People whipped out their phones to record it, shocked by the sheer size and presence of this thing. The footage was not grainy or hard to interpret. It was clear, undeniable, and frankly, a little terrifying. Whatever it was, it wanted to be seen. Meanwhile, over in the Bronx, New York, Christmas Eve brought its own light show. Multiple glowing orbs floated in the sky, and people spotted over a dozen of them from various angles.
You were showing the same thing up in the States. There were UFOs. I seen them last night. You sure they're not Chinese lanterns?
Witnesses described them as drones or plasmoids, but their behavior defied explanation. Hovering, glowing, and multiplying, these orbs put on a performance that felt straight out of a science fiction movie. Some hovered over Westchester, while others clustered together like they were planning something. Again, no answers, just more questions. The pattern here is too obvious to ignore. These sightings are piling up all over the globe, and the so-called experts are staying suspiciously quiet. Government agencies are not addressing it. Media outlets are not covering it in depth. And meanwhile, regular folks are left scratching their heads, piecing together scraps of evidence from social media posts, videos, and local news blurbs. What is going on here? Is this cutting-edge military technology we are not supposed to know about? Some kind of natural phenomenon we have never seen before? Or are we finally brushing up against something truly otherworldly? Whatever it is, it's big. The secrecy, the sudden account deletions, the uncanny similarities between sightings. It all feels orchestrated, like someone does not want us to connect the dots. Think about it. Molten metal falling from the sky, glowing orbs that defy physics, and mysterious power outages. This is not just another chapter in the unidentified flying object craze. It's a whole new level of weird. And yet, here we are left to speculate while the powers that be pretend none of this is happening. Maybe they are clueless. Maybe they are complicit. Either way, the silence is deafening. As these sightings keep stacking up, one thing is clear. We are on the brink of something massive. Whether it is a breakthrough in understanding our universe or a reckoning with forces beyond our control, it is coming. The only question is, will we be ready for it when it does? To get a clearer picture, let's dive into some of the shared elements across these sightings. The glowing orbs seem to share certain characteristics: a spherical or orb-like shape, intensely bright light, and a tendency to release some kind of molten or metallic material. Witnesses often report silence during these events. No hum, no roar, just an eerie quiet. These details are remarkably consistent across locations and dates, hinting at something more structured than random occurrences. Another factor is the aftermath. The materials left behind, if they are indeed connected to these events, defy simple explanations. Melted, multi-layered clumps of metal do not just appear out of thin air. If analyzed, these materials could potentially tell us more about their origins, but that requires the cooperation of scientific institutions. And let's be honest, how likely is that? Then there are the environmental oddities. Power outages, disruptions in communications, and unusual weather patterns have all been linked to these sightings. Is this a side effect of whatever technology or forces at play? Or is it just an unlucky coincidence? The fact that these events often coincide with power disruptions is hard to ignore. If the objects are emitting some form of energy, it's clearly powerful enough to interfere with human technology. Just when it seems clear, the story takes a surprising turn. The Rendlesham Enigma. Imagine this. It is the late 1970s, right around Christmas, and you are stationed in a quiet little corner of the United Kingdom. The biggest excitement you expect is the occasional drunk soldier wandering off base. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then, over 3 nights, something happens that shakes everyone up. Lights in the sky, strange readings on equipment, and a story that is so bizarre it sounds like it came from a cheap science fiction movie. Welcome to the Rendlesham Forest Incident, Britain's very own Roswell. On December 26, 1980, United States Air Force personnel stationed at Royal Air Force Woodbridge in Bentwaters in Suffolk saw strange, colorful lights in the nearby forest. The base was home to a stockpile of nuclear weapons, making it a high-security area. This was not the place for casual shenanigans. Witnesses, including highly trained military officers, described glowing objects with red, yellow, and blue lights that darted between trees like they had a mind of their own. This was not your average lights-in-the-sky story. What makes this case wild is the audio evidence. Conversations between soldiers and their superiors were recorded during the investigation. In these tapes, you hear disbelief, confusion, and descriptions of a glowing object hovering close to the ground.
There it is. Hey, I see it too. That's the farmer's house across in the next field. Now we have multiple sightings of up to 5 lights.
One airman said the thing was about 10 meters wide, with a pulsing red light on top and blue lights underneath. It was not just hanging out either. It moved. When the soldiers got closer, the object zipped off into the trees and disappeared. The next day, military personnel found 3 indentations in the ground, perfectly spaced and about 7 inches wide. Radiation levels in the area were higher than normal as well. Fast forward to December 28th, things got even weirder. Witnesses claimed that they saw a triangular-shaped craft about 9 meters across land in a clearing. It was not just lights this time. This thing had weight, detail, and what some described as an ancient vibe. One airman said it had strange markings on its surface, like hieroglyphs. At one point, beings were reportedly seen near the craft. They were described as about 1 meter tall, glowing, and semi-transparent. Whether they were real, holograms, or something else entirely, no one could say. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, the deputy base commander, decided to investigate himself. Armed with a Geiger counter and a notebook, he led a team into the forest. They saw bright lights moving erratically in the sky and beams of light shooting down to the ground. Halt recorded his observations, which later became known as the Halt Memo. In it, he described unexplainable phenomena, including the craft and the radiation readings. Of course, the skeptics had their say. The Ministry of Defense dismissed the incident, claiming the lights were probably from the nearby Orfordness Lighthouse. But this explanation does not hold up for many reasons. For starters, the witnesses were trained military personnel familiar with the local area. They knew what a lighthouse beam looked like. Also, a lighthouse does not leave radiation traces or make the ground shake. Something happened in that forest, something that scared people trained to face life-and-death situations. The Rendlesham case did not just fade into obscurity. In 1983, under the Freedom of Information Act, the United States released documents related to the incident. Halt's memo was among them, fueling speculation and conspiracy theories. Many believe this was a government cover-up, pointing to the base's nuclear arsenal as a reason for heightened interest from the others. Why were lights and crafts focused on such a sensitive site? And why did the Ministry of Defense brush it off so casually? Eyewitnesses like Larry Warren have been vocal about their experiences. Warren, a security policeman on duty that night, insists he saw beings in a craft up close. He has faced criticism and skepticism over the years, but he stands by his account. He even wrote a book to document what he saw. Critics argue Warren exaggerated, but other witnesses confirm many of the same details. Whether you believe him or not, his story adds another layer to this already baffling case. Over the decades, theories about Rendlesham have ranged from experimental military technology to extraterrestrial visits. Some think the United States and United Kingdom governments were testing new aircraft or weapons and used the UFO angle as a convenient distraction. Others believe it was a genuine close encounter. The truth? It is probably somewhere in between. What is undeniable is that multiple credible witnesses saw something extraordinary, something that has never been fully explained. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Rendlesham case is the sheer number of witnesses. Over 40 military personnel reported seeing something strange over the 3 nights. These were not just casual onlookers. They were disciplined, trained individuals trusted with safeguarding nuclear weapons. Their accounts included vivid descriptions of the craft's size, shape, and movement. Some even described how the object seemed to distort time and space, creating an eerie silence and slowing everything down. The radiation readings are another perplexing piece of the puzzle. The ground where the craft supposedly landed showed unusually high levels of radiation. Experts measured these readings using military-grade equipment, and while the levels were not dangerous, they were far above what would normally be found in the area. This evidence adds a layer of credibility to the physical presence of something unusual in the forest. Critics have pointed out inconsistencies in the witnesses' accounts. Memories of traumatic or shocking events can be unreliable, and over time, stories tend to change. However, the core details of the Rendlesham incident have remained consistent. The strange lights, the triangular craft, and the high radiation levels. These recurring elements suggest that whatever happened was not just a figment of the imagination. Over the years, many have questioned why the Ministry of Defense and United States government would cover up such an event. One explanation is national security. During the Cold War, admitting to an unknown presence near a nuclear base could have caused widespread panic. Another theory is that the governments knew exactly what the craft was, either advanced technology or something extraterrestrial, and chose to keep it under wraps to maintain control over the narrative. There is also the possibility that the Rendlesham incident was part of a larger pattern of unexplained phenomena occurring around military installations. Similar cases have been reported near nuclear facilities in the United States and other countries. These incidents often involve unidentified flying objects hovering over or interacting with sensitive sites. Could these be coincidences, or is there a deeper connection? Despite the official denials, the Rendlesham Forest incident has left an indelible mark on ufology. It is one of the most well-documented UFO cases in history, with multiple witnesses, physical evidence, and government documents to back it up. It has inspired countless books, documentaries, and debates, keeping the mystery alive for over 4 decades. Get ready to meet the man who changes everything. Secrets, skeptics, and the hidden push for transparency. Colonel Carneal, a guy who is no stranger to the secretive, high-risk circles of government. Picture this. He's standing in front of a bunch of bigwigs at a New York conference, dropping bombshells about non-human intelligence. Yes, he said point blank that they are real, that they have been here, and that they have been interacting with us. It's not a one-off thing, but something that has been going on for years. And here's the kicker. There are people in the government who know everything, but they're not saying a word. This isn't just some random guy spinning tales. Carneal's resume is jaw-dropping. If he'd stayed in the military, he might have been a brigadier general by now. He's held top roles in Army Space Command, Lockheed Martin, and other high-level places. He's worked with secretive programs, advised key military leaders, and led major reorganizations in the Army Reserve. The man's been in the room where it happens. So when he says there's zero doubt about non-human intelligences, it's not your average internet conspiracy. It's a heavy statement from someone with real insider knowledge. But here's where it gets messy. Social media critics are quick to brush off his claims. They're yelling, "Where's the proof?" Or, "We've heard this before." Sure, maybe the broad strokes of his statements aren't new. People like Lou Elizondo and David Grush have been saying similar things. What sets Carneal apart is the way he's saying it. His tone, his choice of words, and the clear confidence in his statements make it hard to dismiss. Here's a fascinating twist. Carneal might have even been a source for Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal's explosive article about David Grush's allegations. This isn't some random guy on Reddit. This is a guy with deep roots in these shadowy worlds, confirming pieces of the puzzle. But predictably, he's tight-lipped about specifics. That's where the "where's the evidence" crowd misses the point. Guys like Carneal can't just spill everything. They're bound by top-secret clearances and national security oaths. Now let's talk about this mysterious foreign material exploitation program. While working in Iraq in the early 2000s, Carneal was involved in a program that dealt with capturing and analyzing exotic technology. And no, exotic technology isn't just spy gadgets. We're talking about technology that might not even be from this world. This program worked closely with allies like Australia, the United Kingdom, and Canada. It's like an international game of keep away with potentially mind-blowing discoveries. Back on the home front, the big legislative fight is the Schumer Amendment, which aimed to protect whistleblowers who want to spill the beans on unidentified aerial phenomena. It got shot down last year, but Carneal's pushing for another try. Why? Because Congress, not the public, needs to be convinced to act. Forget what skeptics on Twitter say. The real action is in those closed-door congressional meetings. If lawmakers can be swayed, we might finally see some transparency. Carneal also shed light on why governments are so cagey about disclosure. It's not just about protecting us from panic, though that's a convenient excuse. It's also about national security, keeping adversaries in the dark and avoiding societal disruptions. There's even a whisper of covert agreements with non-human intelligences. If true, that's a rabbit hole we might not be ready to go down. On the flip side, the arguments for disclosure are just as compelling. Carneal argues that knowing about non-human intelligences isn't just a right. It's essential for understanding the world and ensuring that governments stay accountable. Secrets like these aren't just about protecting us. They're about maintaining power and privilege. If the truth comes out, it could upend the balance of power in ways we can't fully predict. And then there's the science. Carneal hints that the secrecy around non-human intelligence technology is stifling progress. Imagine if scientists could openly collaborate on this. Instead of keeping everything locked up in black budget programs, sharing ideas could lead to breakthroughs that benefit everyone. Think of it like the Manhattan Project, but for something even bigger than splitting atoms. Carneal's not naive about how hard this road is. Disclosure isn't going to happen overnight, and there are plenty of powerful people who want to keep these secrets buried. But he's hopeful that the tide is turning. The push for whistleblower protections, the mounting public interest, and the increasing willingness of insiders to speak out all point to a breaking point. At the end of the day, Carneal's message is simple. This stuff matters. It's not just about aliens or cool technology. It's about accountability, progress, and the kind of world we want to live in. Whether Congress steps up or not, people like Carneal are lighting a fire under this issue, and it's up to us to keep it burning. Carneal's critics might argue he's rehashing old claims, but there's an undeniable urgency in his delivery. It's one thing to hear theories online. It's another to see someone with his credentials speaking with such certainty. For years, the conversation around unidentified aerial phenomena has been dismissed as fringe or fantastical. Now we're seeing a shift. Respected individuals are stepping forward, risking their reputations to push for the truth. This isn't just about the possibility of extraterrestrial life. It's about what governments know, what they've kept hidden, and why. Transparency isn't just a nice to have, it's a necessity. The public deserves to know if non-human intelligences have been interacting with us. It's not a question of whether people can handle the truth. It's about whether those in power are willing to share it. For decades, secrecy has ruled the day. Programs like the Foreign Material Exploitation Initiative have operated in the shadows, pulling in resources and expertise from around the globe. These efforts hint at something bigger, something we're only beginning to understand. And while skeptics demand tangible proof, insiders like Carneal remind us that the truth is often hidden in plain sight. Imagine a world where this information is out in the open. The potential for scientific advancement is staggering. The barriers that have held back progress could crumble. Collaboration could replace secrecy, but that vision remains just out of reach, tangled in bureaucracy, politics, and fear of the unknown. Carneal's push for the Schumer Amendment is a step in the right direction. Protecting whistleblowers is crucial. Without it, those with the knowledge and courage to speak out might remain silent. Congress has a responsibility to create an environment where the truth can come to light, and it's up to the public to hold them accountable. Imagine a world where information flows freely, barriers crumble, and collaboration thrives. But do we truly want the truth, even if it shatters our reality? Like, comment, subscribe.